important to note that when we talk about D&I, a company that is diverse may not be inclusive. And so you'll have companies that will employ a set number of specific underrepresented groups because that's what's required maybe to secure a contract or in order to do work on someone's land. But there's the piece in there that so once you have people in your workforce, how are you making sure that they're included in your workforce and that it's understood their importance within your organization? And so I think one of the things, there's a couple of things that I have that the government of Alberta does in terms of kind of promoting inclusivity in the workplace. One of them is all government of Alberta employees are required to take an Indigenous awareness training. So it's kind of like a Indigenous Awareness 101. It's a very introductory, assuming that you know nothing about the history with our Indigenous peoples in Canada, and then building up that knowledge from there. The important piece with that is that it's facilitated with an elder, so that there is the perspective from the elder as well as the content, so that you're getting real rich experiential learning rather than just someone kind of reading out of a textbook. The other thing is on September 30th, we have kind of the Orange Shirt Day, so that we can really make sure that people understand the residential school impact, and that, you know, I don't know does everyone here know about Orange Shirt Day? I would suspect that everyone's aware of it. So it's just something that is to kind of showcase that we have to make sure that we're remembering the impact that has happened and how we can recognize that. The last piece is we have something called the Alberta Indigenous Internship Program, which is a 2-year internship program that's done with a community partner that is an Indigenous organization, or they provide services to Indigenous people. And it allows that student who is a graduate from a college or university to get some real first-hand experience working within the government and some work within government, and then also work within a community service provider. So within those things, it helps to promote a little bit more of that inclusivity and understanding of it from the cultural perspective.
So I kind of want to be super transparent in the conversation, because I feel like with the truth, we can kind of move the dial forward. Mm-hmm. I've been in Indigenous banking, Indigenous recruitment, I'd say, for the last 6 years. And, you know, I kind of get worried because I feel like the conversation hasn't changed as much as it should have, and the dial hasn't moved forward as much as I'd like it to. So when I think about the financial industry and hiring Indigenous talent, it is a challenge. I think we're not an employer of choice, and it's not a TD thing. I think it's across the board in the financial industry. We're all kind of having the same challenges and barriers. But, you know, we've really done the research, and I've done a lot of work at the grassroots level to really talk to Indigenous youth, and not just at like the post-secondary level where they've already made the decision to kind of go into the programs that they have, but more at the high school level too. Like, so you think about millennials, you think about youth, you have to go to where the fish are. So again, we don't post things on our job boards or on our career page, because again, the chance of them going onto our career site is like little to no chance. So we try to find places where they'll be, whether they're, you know, trending on hashtags, popular kind of Indigenous stuff that's happening in Canada, across the country. And then again, we're trying to showcase our message through those means. So whether it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, these are kind of the channels. If you want to engage youth, you have to go to where they are, and you have to have a really authentic message. And again, I always go back to my own unconscious bias. I never thought I'd work for a bank. All the employees, Indigenous employees that are my peers today, none of them thought they'd work in banking. So again, because we're dealing with a smaller population of representation in the financial industry, again, it's like that nature versus nurture of like, if none of your family has ever worked in the financial industry, you don't even think that's a job or a career. So again, you're not even kind of looking or making decisions academically to get you into those types of positions. Senior leadership buy-in is another important part of it. For me, again, we've been doing summer internships and student recruitment for such a long time, and that's great. I don't want us to stop doing that. But something that I don't think we're doing enough of is development programs. So you have Indigenous employees now in your organization, but how are you working with them to get them into senior leadership positions, decision-making making positions, or even on like, at that highest level, because again, that's where you're really gonna see change happen. So again, I think it's a holistic approach of like, of course, hire youth, hire, the new kind of talent coming from, across the country, but you have Indigenous people working for you now, and you can develop them into senior leadership positions. And what does that look like?
That in my lots of years working in the industry and in HR, diversity and inclusion is something that has been part of my work for a long time. And so I've really worked hard and searched hard with lots and lots of partners to say, okay, so like what makes the difference? There's a lot of stuff you can do, but if nothing changes, then you might as well just go do something else. And I think it's a progression. Lots of companies start with, because I have to. License to operate, we used to call it, which probably meant access to right-of-ways. And then companies evolve to the place where understanding that actually, if your employees can show up and be who they are, and your policies allow people to be who they are and have that be part of the workplace, then their energy goes into creative, innovative partnerships, relationships, and work, as opposed to all the energy that has to go into fitting in around here. And that's true across all kinds of dimensions, and it's absolutely appropriate and true in the Indigenous space. So there's the why, and then there's education, and we've heard that all day today in terms of, I wrote it down this morning in my other book, but teaching Canada about parts of Canada that Canadians don't know. And so that's a piece. I mean, it's what you talked about with every employee going through a training session, is just starting with, what's the conversation? What's the truth? What's the truth in this space, and why are we having this conversation so legitimately at work about in terms of creating opportunities, providing training, providing means in, absolutely building relationships, and that's with communities. There's lots to learn and lots to exchange, and then one-on-one relationships, which at the end I think is what makes it the most real.